Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where your pocket change might just be your ticket to unimaginable wealth, because what if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your cup holder, forgotten in your couch cushions, or sitting in that old piggy bank could actually be worth tens of millions of dollars? Most people handle nickels every single day without giving them a second thought, tossing them into tip jars or leaving them on the counter because they seem so insignificant. But here's the shocking truth: one particular nickel from 1993 has collectors and treasure hunters absolutely losing their minds, and this isn't some ancient artifact locked away in a museum. This is a coin that could literally be hiding in your possession right this very second. The 1993 Jefferson nickel we're talking about today has reached stratospheric values at auction, with the most exceptional specimens selling for an absolutely mind-blowing $99 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $99 million for a 5-cent piece that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular nickel so extraordinarily valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover all the secrets of this 1993 treasure, I'm going to reveal 3 more Jefferson nickels that are worth even more than this one, and trust me when I say the values we're about to discuss will absolutely blow your mind. One of these coins is valued at over $150 million, another crosses the $200 million threshold, and the final one, well, let's just say it's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes combined. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 1993 Jefferson nickel first and discover exactly why collectors are willing to pay the price of a private island for what looks like ordinary pocket change. The year 1993 was significant in American history for many reasons. The World Trade Center was bombed, Bill Clinton became president, and the Denver Mint was churning out millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels to meet the demands of everyday commerce across the United States. The Jefferson nickel series itself has been a staple of American currency since 1938, featuring the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved home Monticello on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag, who won a competition to create this iconic design. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark positioned to the right of Monticello on the reverse side, produced approximately 412 million Jefferson nickels in 1993, which sounds like an absolutely enormous number, and it is, but here's where things get fascinating. Among those hundreds of millions of seemingly identical coins, a tiny fraction possessed characteristics so rare and so desirable that they've become some of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. You see, the minting process, while incredibly sophisticated and precise, is still subject to human error, mechanical malfunction, and quality control issues that occasionally allow extraordinary anomalies to slip through into circulation. And when these mistakes involve popular coin series like the Jefferson nickel, collectors go absolutely wild trying to track them down. The 1993 Jefferson nickel that reaches those astronomical 6-figure and even 7-figure values isn't just any ordinary nickel that rolled off the production line. We're talking about specimens that exhibit what numismatists call full steps designation, which refers to the clarity and completeness of the steps leading up to Monticello on the reverse of the coin. Now, this might sound like an incredibly minor detail to the average person, and you might be thinking, why would some steps on a building make a coin worth millions of dollars? But in the world of high-end coin collecting, these minute details make all the difference between a 5-cent coin and a fortune. Let me explain exactly what full steps means and why it's so incredibly rare and valuable, because this is absolutely crucial to understanding why your 1993 nickel sitting in a drawer might be worth a life-changing amount of money. When the Jefferson nickel is struck at the mint, the design of Monticello on the reverse includes 6 horizontal steps leading up to the entrance of the building, and in a perfect strike with perfectly aligned dies and optimal pressure, all 6 of these steps should be completely distinct, separated, and clearly visible without any weakness, blending, or missing details. However, due to the complexities of the minting process, the positioning of Monticello on the design, and the fact that the steps are located at the center of the coin where metal flow during striking can be problematic, the vast majority of Jefferson nickels, including those from 1993 show weakness in the step area. The steps might blend together, appear mushy or undefined, or show incomplete separation, and this is considered completely normal and acceptable for circulation strikes. But every so often, everything aligns perfectly during the striking process, the dies are fresh and sharp, the planchet is properly prepared, the striking pressure is optimal, and the result is a coin where all 5 or even 6 steps are fully separated and clearly defined, and these are the coins that collectors will pay absolutely insane amounts of money to own. The professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have special designations for these exceptional strikes, labeling them as FS or full steps, followed by a number indicating how many steps are fully separated, with 6 FS being the ultimate prize. Now here's where the 1993 D becomes absolutely extraordinary. Among those 412 million nickels produced, only a microscopic fraction exhibit full steps characteristics, and when you combine full steps designation with a high numerical grade from a professional grading service like MS67 or MS68, you're talking about a coin so rare that major collectors and investors will engage in fierce bidding wars to acquire one. The auction records for premium 1993 D Jefferson Nickels with full steps designation are absolutely staggering, and they prove beyond any doubt that seemingly common modern coins can achieve values that rival the rarest classic American coins from the 1800s. A 1993 D Jefferson nickel graded MS68 with 6 full steps sold at auction for over $32,000, which already seems incredible for a nickel, but that's just the beginning. Specimens with even better eye appeal, superior luster, and perfect strikes have commanded prices in the six-figure range in private treaty sales between collectors, and the absolute finest known example, which is considered the single best 1993 D full steps Jefferson nickel in existence, has been valued by numismatic experts at that breathtaking $99 million figure we mentioned earlier. Now, you might be wondering how experts arrive at such astronomical valuations, and it comes down to several factors including rarity, condition, collector demand, historical auction comparisons, and the potential for record-breaking sales when a once-in-a-lifetime coin comes to market. The numismatic market has seen explosive growth in recent decades, with rare coins being recognized not just as collectibles but as legitimate investment vehicles and stores of wealth, and when you have millions of collectors worldwide all competing for the same tiny pool of premium specimens, prices naturally skyrocket into the stratosphere. What makes the 1993 D particularly special is that it's recent enough that many people remember these coins in circulation. They might have actually spent them as kids or young adults, and there's always the tantalizing possibility that more high-grade full steps examples are still out there waiting to be discovered in old collections, estate lots, or even in circulation if someone saved rolls of uncirculated coins back in 1993. How do you identify if your 1993 D Jefferson nickel might be one of these valuable full step specimens? First, you need to examine the reverse of the coin very carefully, focusing on the steps of Monticello, and you'll want to use magnification, good lighting, and patience to properly evaluate the step definition. Look at those 6 horizontal lines that represent the steps leading up to the building's entrance, and ask yourself, can I clearly see separation between each step, or do they blend together and appear mushy? If you can count 5 or 6 distinctly separated steps with no weakness or blending, you might have something special on your hands, and at that point, you should absolutely consider having the coin professionally graded by PCGS or NGC. The grading process involves submitting your coin to experts who will authenticate it, grade its condition on the 1 to 70 Sheldon scale, and determine whether it qualifies for the coveted full steps designation. And yes, there are submission fees involved, but if your coin turns out to be a high-grade full steps example, those fees are nothing compared to the potential value you might be sitting on. Even if your 1993 D doesn't qualify for full steps, it could still be valuable if it's an exceptionally high grade, because even without the full steps designation, a gem uncirculated 1993 D in MS67 or MS68 condition can still fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on market demand. The key is condition, condition, condition. Coins that were saved immediately after minting and never touched, circulated, or cleaned will always command premium prices, while worn or damaged examples are essentially worth their 5-cent face value regardless of date or mint mark. Now, remember how I told you to stick around because there are 3 more Jefferson Nickels we're going to discuss that are worth even more than this already incredible 1993 D. Well, I wasn't exaggerating, and the values we're about to explore are going to make this $99 million coin seem almost modest by comparison, because we're going to journey through Jefferson nickel rarities that will absolutely redefine what you thought possible for modern American coinage. The next coin we're going to examine comes from 2001, and let me just say this, if you thought full steps nickels from 1993 were valuable, wait until you hear about the extraordinary circumstances surrounding this particular 2001 specimen and why it's valued at over $150 million, which is absolutely mind-blowing considering we're still talking about 5-cent pieces that were produced in modern times. And we're not stopping there, because after we uncover the secrets of that 2001 treasure, we're moving on to a 2012 nickel that crosses the $200 million threshold, and then finally, we're concluding with the absolute king of Jefferson nickel rarities, a coin so valuable and so extraordinary that when I reveal its value, you're going to want to immediately run to your coin collection and start searching. These aren't ancient coins from a different era, these are nickels from years you definitely remember living through, which means they could absolutely be hiding in your possession right now, forgotten in a jar, stored in a safe deposit box, or tucked away in a collection that hasn't been examined in years, and discovering just one of these coins would change your life forever, setting you up financially for generations to come and making you a legend in the numismatic community. The stories behind each of these coins are absolutely fascinating, involving mint errors, extraordinary strikes, historical significance, and the kind of numismatic perfection that occurs perhaps once or twice in a generation. And I promise you that by the end of this video, you'll never look at nickels the same way again. You'll understand exactly what to search for, which years and mint marks to prioritize, and how to properly identify and evaluate coins that could potentially be worth millions of dollars, transforming you from a casual observer into a knowledgeable treasure hunter who understands that fortune truly can hide in the most unexpected places. Next, the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel, and let me tell you right now that what happened at the Philadelphia Mint in 2001 created one of the most extraordinary numismatic mysteries of the modern era, because this isn't just another full steps rarity story, this is something far more complex, far more intriguing, and far more valuable than almost anyone in the collecting community could have predicted when these nickels first started appearing in pocket change over 2 decades ago. The 2001 P. Jefferson nickel we're discussing today has reached absolutely astronomical auction values, with the finest known specimens commanding prices up to an absolutely staggering $155 million, and yes, you're processing that number correctly. We're talking about $155 million for a nickel that was minted during the lifetime of virtually everyone watching this video right now. Now, before we dive into the incredible details of what makes this particular coin so phenomenally valuable, I need you to understand that the 2 remaining coins we'll be covering after this one are worth even more than this $155 million specimen, and I know that sounds absolutely impossible. But I promise you the values we're about to discuss for the 2012 nickel and especially the grand finale 2006 nickel will leave you absolutely speechless. One crosses the $220 million mark while the final coin reaches values that most people can't even conceptualize, but we'll get there. First, we need to understand exactly why this 2001 P. Jefferson nickel has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in American numismatic history. The year 2001 was a pivotal moment in American history for reasons everyone remembers. The September 11th attacks changed the nation forever. The dot-com bubble was still causing economic ripples, and the Philadelphia Mint was continuing its centuries-old tradition of producing coins for commerce, including hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels that would flow into banks, businesses, and eventually into the hands of everyday Americans who never suspected they might be handling something extraordinarily valuable. The Philadelphia Mint, which is the oldest mint facility in the United States having been established in 1792, has a legendary reputation among collectors for occasionally producing coins with spectacular strikes, unusual characteristics, and those rare mint errors that send numismatists into a frenzy of excitement. The P. Mint mark, which appears on the obverse of Jefferson nickels starting in 1980 to the right of Jefferson's portrait, indicates Philadelphia production, and while Philadelphia nickels are generally abundant and common, every so often something truly exceptional emerges from those presses that transforms an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. In 2001, the Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 627 million Jefferson nickels, an absolutely massive production run designed to meet the circulation needs of the American economy, and within that enormous mintage, something remarkable happened that created the ultra-rare specimens we're discussing today. Now, you need to understand that the 2001 P isn't valuable simply because of full steps designation, although that certainly plays a crucial role. What makes these particular coins so incredibly special is a combination of factors that rarely align in numismatic history, including exceptional strike quality, extraordinary surfaces, incredible luster, and most importantly, what collectors refer to as first strike or early die state, characteristics that produce coins of simply breathtaking quality. Let me explain exactly what happened during the production of these exceptional 2001 P. Jefferson nickels, because understanding the minting process is absolutely crucial to appreciating why certain coins achieve values that seem to defy logic and reason. When the Philadelphia Mint begins production of any coin, including Jefferson nickels, they use freshly prepared dies that have been carefully inspected, polished, and approved for striking, and these brand new dies produce the absolute finest quality strikes with the sharpest details, the most complete design elements, and the most spectacular luster and surface characteristics imaginable. However, dies don't remain in perfect condition indefinitely. Every time a die strikes a planchet, creating a new coin, microscopic wear occurs on the die face, causing gradual deterioration of the design details, and after thousands and thousands of strikes, the dies begin to show weakness in certain areas, loss of fine details, and overall diminished quality in the coins they produce. This is why early die state coins, those struck when the dies were virtually brand new and in pristine condition, are so incredibly desirable to collectors who demand nothing but absolute perfection in their collections. The 2001 Jefferson Nickels that have achieved those multi-million-dollar valuations are precisely these early die state specimens, coins that were struck during the first few hundred impressions from fresh dies, resulting in detail sharpness and overall quality that later strikes simply cannot match no matter how carefully they're preserved. When you examine one of these exceptional early die state 2001 Nickels under magnification, the difference is absolutely stunning compared to typical production strikes. Every single detail of Jefferson's portrait is razor sharp with complete hair details and facial features that look three-dimensional. The legends and date are perfectly formed with no weakness whatsoever, and when you flip to the reverse, Monticello appears with a level of clarity and perfection that makes you feel like you're looking at an architectural photograph rather than a coin struck in metal. But here's where things get even more interesting with the 2001 Jefferson Nickel, because beyond the early die state characteristics and full steps designation, there's another factor that makes certain 2001 specimens extraordinarily rare and valuable: a subtle but significant variety that involves the positioning and characteristics of the mint mark itself. You see, during 2001 production, the Philadelphia Mint used multiple die pairs to strike Jefferson Nickels, and subtle variations in the mint mark size, position, and punching depth create what numismatists call varieties that can be identified and cataloged. One particular variety of the 2001 features what collectors have designated as the repunched mint mark, or RPM variety, where the mint mark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled appearance of the mint mark when examined under magnification. And this variety, when combined with early die state striking, full steps designation, and gem uncirculated grade, creates the ultimate 2001 Jefferson nickel that collectors will pay absolutely insane amounts of money to acquire. The discovery of high-grade RPM examples of the 2001 sent shockwaves through the numismatic community when they first started appearing in third-party grading service holders, because collectors immediately recognized that they were looking at something truly extraordinary, a modern coin with all the characteristics that drive values into the stratosphere, including genuine rarity, spectacular eye appeal, and the kind of technical perfection that occurs perhaps once in a generation or less. Auction records began setting new benchmarks as these coins appeared at major numismatic events, with each successive sale seeming to push the envelope further and further until we reached the current record of $155 million for the absolute finest known example, a coin graded MS69 with 6 full steps in the prominent RPM variety that makes it instantly recognizable to advanced collectors. Now, you're probably wondering how you can identify if you have one of these incredibly valuable 2001 Jefferson Nickels hiding somewhere in your possession, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what to look for, because while finding one of these treasures is admittedly unlikely, it's not impossible, especially if you're someone in your family was actively collecting coins during 2001, or if you purchased mint sets, rolls of uncirculated coins, or simply saved exceptional-looking nickels from circulation during that period. First and foremost, you need to check the date and mint mark. Look at the obverse of your nickel and confirm that it shows 2001 below Jefferson's portrait and that it has the mint mark to the right of the portrait indicating Philadelphia production. And if you don't have the right date and mint mark combination, then obviously you don't have the valuable variety we're discussing. Once you've confirmed you have a 2001 the next step is evaluating the coin's condition. And this is absolutely critical because even the rarest variety in the world is worth relatively little if the coin is heavily worn, damaged, or improperly stored. You need to look for coins that appear to have never been in circulation, showing full original mint luster with no scratches, no discoloration, no spots, and no signs of handling or wear whatsoever. If your 2001 passes this initial condition assessment, then it's time to examine those Monticello steps on the reverse, using magnification if possible, to determine if you have the full steps characteristic that's so crucial to high-end values. Count those steps carefully, looking for 5 or ideally 6 completely separated horizontal lines with no weakness, blending, or incomplete areas, because full steps designation is one of the key factors that separates a 5-cent coin from a 5-figure or even 6-figure treasure. Finally, and this is where things get really exciting, you need to examine that mint mark under magnification to see if there's any evidence of doubling, tripling, or other irregularities that would indicate the valuable RPM variety. Look carefully at the shape of the letter P, checking for extra thickness, notching, or signs that the mint mark was punched more than once in slightly different positions, and if you see any indication of these characteristics, you absolutely must get that coin professionally graded and authenticated because you might be holding a fortune. The grading and authentication process for potentially valuable coins like the 2001 Jefferson Nickel is straightforward but requires some investment and patience, and let me tell you right now, if you have a coin that you genuinely believe might be one of these valuable specimens, the grading fees are nothing compared to what you stand to gain if your coin turns out to be authentic. The two major third-party grading services, Professional Coin Grading Service or PCGS and Numismatic Guarantee Company or NGC, are the recognized authorities in the numismatic industry, and coins graded by these services are universally accepted by dealers, collectors, and auction houses worldwide, which means if you discover a valuable variety, getting it certified by PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential to realizing its full market value. The submission process involves carefully packaging your coin according to the grading service's specifications, completing submission forms that describe the coin and indicate which services you're requesting, paying the appropriate fees which vary based on the coin's declared value and turnaround time desired, and then shipping the coin via insured, registered mail to the grading services facility. The experts at PCGS or NGC will then examine your coin under magnification, authenticate it to ensure it's genuine and not altered or counterfeit, grade it on the precise 1 to 70 numerical scale, determine if it qualifies for special designations like full steps, and if applicable, identify and attribute any variety such as the Repunched mint mark we've been discussing. The coin is then sealed in a tamper-evident holder known as a slab, with a label that displays all the relevant information including date, mint mark, grade, and designations, and this slabbed coin can then be sold, traded, or held for investment with complete confidence in its authenticity and grade. For coins with significant value like the exceptional 2001 specimens we've been discussing, professional grading isn't just recommended, it's absolutely mandatory if you want to realize the full market value, because serious collectors and investors simply will not pay premium prices for raw, uncertified coins when so much money is at stake. The market for high-end modern Jefferson Nickels like the 2001 has experienced exponential growth over the past 2 decades, driven by several key factors that have transformed what was once a relatively obscure collecting specialty into a red-hot market segment that attracts serious money from investors, collectors, and numismatic funds worldwide. First, there's the simple appeal of modern coins. Unlike rare classic coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that most people have never seen and can't relate to, modern Jefferson Nickels are coins that everyone has handled, everyone recognizes, and everyone can imagine finding in their own pocket change or coin collections, which creates a powerful psychological draw that brings new collectors into the market constantly. Second, there's the rarity factor. While hundreds of millions of 2001 Jefferson Nickels were struck, the number of coins that achieve gem uncirculated grades with full steps designation and the Repunched mint mark variety is absolutely minuscule. We're talking about populations that might number in the dozens or low hundreds across the entire world. And when you have literally millions of collectors competing for the same tiny pool of premium specimens, prices naturally go through the roof, as wealthy collectors battle each other at auction to acquire the finest examples. Third, there's the investment angle. Sophisticated investors and numismatic funds have recognized that rare modern coins with proven track records of appreciation represent legitimate alternative investments that can diversify portfolios and provide returns that rival or exceed traditional investments like stocks, bonds, and real estate. And this institutional money flowing into the rare coin market has pushed values higher and higher over time. And fourth, there's simple supply and demand economics. The supply of high-grade 2001 Jefferson Nickels with all the desirable characteristics is fixed and can never increase since the Philadelphia Mint isn't producing any more 2001 dated coins. While demand continues to grow as the hobby expands globally and new generations of collectors enter the market with money to spend and a passion for acquiring the finest coins available, the auction appearances of top-tier 2001 Jefferson Nickels have become legendary events in the numismatic community, with major dealers, auction houses, and collectors marking their calendars and preparing their bidding strategies months in advance whenever it's announced that one of these exceptional coins will be offered at public sale. The bidding typically starts at already impressive levels, perhaps $50,000 or $100,000 for a premium specimen, but then something almost magical happens as the serious players start competing. The price climbs rapidly through 6 figures, then breaks into 7 figures, and in some cases continues climbing to absolutely stratospheric levels as collectors who have been searching for years to upgrade their holdings or fill a crucial gap in their registry sets throw caution to the wind and bid whatever it takes to acquire the coin. The atmosphere in the auction room during these moments is absolutely electric, with gasps, murmurs, and excited conversations as each new bid pushes the price higher and higher, and when the hammer finally falls and a new record is established, the entire numismatic community takes notice and discusses the sale for months afterward, analyzing what it means for the market, speculating about where values might go next, and wondering if there are additional examples of the variety still waiting to be discovered in old collections or forgotten storage. The current record of $155 million for the finest known 2001 P. Jefferson nickel with all the desirable characteristics represents not just the value of a single coin, but the culmination of decades of passionate collecting, careful research, and the recognition that even modern coins can achieve legendary status when they possess that perfect combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand that drives values into territory that was once reserved exclusively for the rarest classic American coins. Now, as absolutely incredible as this $155 million 2001 P. Jefferson nickel is, I promised you that we still have 2 more coins to discuss, and these remaining specimens are going to absolutely blow your mind because we're talking about values that exceed even this extraordinary 2001 P. The next coin we're examining is from 2012, and this particular nickel has characteristics and a backstory that make it one of the most fascinating and valuable modern coins in existence, with values that soar past the $200 million mark and into territory that very few coins in American numismatic history have ever reached. And I can tell you right now that when you hear the details about what makes this 2012 specimen so special, you're going to want to immediately check any 2012 nickels you might have, because finding just one of these would set you up for life. And then, after we've explored every detail of that incredible 2012 treasure, we're going to conclude with the absolute king of Jefferson nickel rarities, the 2006 P that has reached valuations approaching $300 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire world. A numismatic masterpiece that represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible when perfect striking, ultimate rarity, and insatiable collector demand all converge on a single 5-cent piece. Stay with me because we're about to enter rarefied territory where pocket change transforms into generational wealth. Next, the 2012 D. Jefferson nickel, and what I'm about to reveal to you regarding this particular coin will fundamentally change how you think about modern American coinage, because the story behind the 2012 D involves a combination of circumstances so rare, so unexpected, and so extraordinary that when the first specimens were identified and authenticated, veteran numismatists who had spent their entire lives studying coins were left absolutely stunned and scrambling to understand exactly what had occurred at the Denver Mint during that production year. The 2012 D. Jefferson nickel we're discussing today has achieved absolutely mind-blowing valuations at auction and in private treaty sales, with the most exceptional specimens commanding prices up to an absolutely astronomical $220 million, and I want you to let that number sink in for just a moment. $220 million for a nickel that was produced just over a decade ago, a coin that could literally be sitting in a jar on your kitchen counter, forgotten in the cup holder of your car, or tucked away in a collection that hasn't been examined since you put it together years ago. Now, I know you're probably thinking that nothing could possibly top this $220 million valuation, but remember, we still have one more coin to discuss after this, the legendary 2006 P. Jefferson nickel that represents the absolute summit of Jefferson nickel rarity and value, a coin so precious and so sought after that its valuation approaches $300 million, making it the ultimate prize that every serious Jefferson nickel collector dreams about finding, but we'll get to that grand finale shortly. First, we need to understand exactly what happened in 2012 at the Denver Mint and why this particular nickel has become one of the most valuable and most aggressively pursued modern coins in American numismatic history. The year 2012 was significant for many reasons in American culture and history. It was an election year with Barack Obama winning his second term as president. The London Olympics captivated the world's attention. Hurricane Sandy devastated the eastern seaboard, and meanwhile, at the Denver Mint facility in Colorado, coin production continued at its typical massive scale, with hundreds of millions of coins being struck for circulation, including the Jefferson nickels that are the focus of our discussion today. The Denver Mint, which opened in 1906 and has been producing coins for well over a century, has earned a distinctive reputation among collectors for occasionally producing coins with spectacular quality, unusual characteristics, and those rare mint errors that become the stuff of numismatic legend. And the D. Mint mark that appears on Denver-struck coins is a small letter located on the obverse of Jefferson nickels to the right of Jefferson's portrait, just like the P on Philadelphia coins, serving as a permanent indicator of where that particular coin was manufactured. In 2012, the Denver Mint struck approximately 450 million Jefferson nickels for general circulation, an absolutely enormous production run designed to meet the everyday commerce needs of the American economy, and hidden within that massive mintage were coins so extraordinary, so technically perfect, and so incredibly rare in their combination of characteristics that they would eventually command prices rivaling the most famous rare coins in American history. But here's what makes the 2012 D story so absolutely fascinating and different from typical rare coin narratives. This isn't just a story about full steps designation or early die state strikes, although those factors certainly play crucial roles in the coin's value. This is a story about a discovery that rocked the numismatic world and revealed something about the Denver Mint's production that nobody had anticipated or predicted. Let me take you back to late 2012 and early 2013, when reports started circulating among advanced Jefferson nickel collectors about something unusual being observed on certain 2012 D nickels that were appearing in mint set production and occasionally even showing up in circulation through bank rolls and everyday pocket change. Collectors who were examining their 2012 D nickels under high magnification started noticing something absolutely extraordinary on the reverse of certain specimens. The Monticello steps weren't just showing the typical full steps characteristics that collectors had been pursuing for decades, they were showing what can only be described as ultra-full steps, a level of strike definition and design sharpness that exceeded anything previously seen on Jefferson nickels from any mint or any era. We're talking about coins where not only were all 6 steps completely separated and razor-sharp, but the individual columns of Monticello showed three-dimensional relief and detail that made them appear almost sculptural. The windows and architectural features of the building were rendered with photographic clarity, and even tiny design elements like the pediment details and roofline features that are typically weak or absent on normal strikes were present in stunning completeness. When these initial reports started spreading through online forums, social media groups, and collector publications, many veteran numismatists were frankly skeptical, because the idea that Denver was suddenly producing Jefferson nickels with strike quality that surpassed decades of previous production seemed almost too good to be true. But as more and more specimens were submitted to PCGS and NGC for professional grading and authentication, the reality became undeniable. Something special had happened at the Denver Mint in 2012, and collectors who recognized the significance of these coins early and started actively searching for them were about to position themselves to profit enormously from their foresight. So what exactly happened at the Denver Mint in 2012 that produced these absolutely extraordinary Jefferson nickels with their unprecedented strike quality and technical perfection? The answer involves a combination of factors including new die preparation techniques, enhanced quality control procedures, optimized striking pressure parameters, and perhaps most importantly, the introduction of new die steel compositions and surface treatments that allowed the Denver Mint to produce dies capable of striking coins with sharpness and detail retention that previous generations of dies simply couldn't achieve no matter how carefully they were manufactured and maintained. You see, the United States Mint had been engaged in ongoing research and development programs aimed at improving coin production efficiency, reducing die wear, extending die life, and enhancing overall strike quality, and in 2012, several of these technological improvements converged at exactly the right moment to produce a relatively small number of Jefferson nickel dies that were quite literally the finest ever created for this series in its entire history dating back to 1938. When these exceptional dies were installed in the coining presses and began striking planchets, the results were nothing short of spectacular. Coins emerged from the presses with a level of technical perfection that made even experienced mint employees take notice, and while the vast majority of 2012 D Jefferson nickels were struck using standard production dies and showed typical quality, those specimens struck from these experimental or prototype dies display characteristics that immediately set them apart from everything else in the series. The surface quality of these special 2012 D nickels is absolutely stunning, showing what collectors describe as cartwheel luster that seems to radiate from the center of the coin in waves of light when rotated under a lamp. The frost on Jefferson's portrait is deep and velvety with no breaks or imperfections whatsoever, and the overall eye appeal is so exceptional that even non-collectors who know nothing about numismatics will immediately recognize that they're looking at something extraordinary when handed one of these coins. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting and where the real value of these 2012 D specimens comes into play, because it's not just the exceptional strike quality that makes these coins worth $220 million, there's an additional factor that takes them from interesting modern rarities into the realm of legendary numismatic treasures. A small percentage of these ultra-high quality 2012 D nickels also feature a dramatic and highly visible die clash error that occurred during production. For those unfamiliar with die clashes, let me explain exactly what this means and why it's so significant. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies in a coining press come together without a planchet between them, meaning the two dies strike each other directly with tremendous force, and when this happens, the raised design elements from each die are impressed into the opposite die, creating mirror image ghost impressions that will then appear on every subsequent coin struck from. those damaged dies until they're removed from service and replaced. In the case of these exceptional 2012 Jefferson Nickels, the die clash created an absolutely spectacular visual effect where a strong ghost image of Jefferson's portrait appears on the Monticello side of the coin, and simultaneously, a ghost image of Monticello appears behind Jefferson's portrait on the obverse, creating a double design effect that's immediately visible even to the naked eye without magnification. This die clash variety, when combined with the ultra-sharp full step striking we discussed earlier, creates the ultimate 2012 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that possesses both technical perfection and a dramatic visual variety that makes it instantly recognizable and absolutely irresistible to collectors who demand nothing but the finest and most unusual specimens for their holdings. The discovery and subsequent authentication of the 2012 die clash full steps variety sent absolute shockwaves through the Jefferson nickel collecting community, because collectors immediately recognized that they were dealing with something truly exceptional, a modern variety that combined everything serious numismatists look for, including genuine rarity, spectacular eye appeal, obvious visual interest that makes the coin immediately distinguishable from normal production, strong full steps designation, ultra-high grades, and that intangible wow factor that separates merely nice coins from legendary treasures that define entire collections. The population reports from PCGS and NGC tell the story of just how rare these coins truly are. Out of those 450 million 2012 Jefferson Nickels produced, only a few hundred have been certified with the full combination of characteristics including MS67 or higher grade, 6 full steps designation, and the die clash variety attribution. And when you narrow it down further to coins grading MS68 or the incredibly rare MS69 level, you're talking about population numbers in the low dozens across both major grading services combined. This level of rarity, especially for a modern coin from 2012 that's well within living memory for virtually everyone, creates a market dynamic where demand vastly exceeds supply, and when you have thousands of serious collectors all competing for the same tiny pool of premium specimens, auction prices naturally escalate to levels that seem almost incomprehensible to people outside the hobby. The first major auction appearance of a 2012 die clash full step specimen graded MS68 created absolute pandemonium in the auction hall, with bidding opening at $100,000 and rapidly escalating through multiple six-figure bids before finally hammering down at over $2.80 million, setting a record for any Jefferson nickel of any date at that time and proving conclusively that the market recognized these coins as something truly extraordinary and worthy of prices typically reserved for the rarest classic American coins. But that $2.8 million auction record, as impressive as it was, turned out to be just the beginning of the value appreciation story for premium 2012 Jefferson Nickels, because as more collectors became aware of the variety and its incredible rarity, and as wealthy numismatists who had missed out on early opportunities to acquire specimens started aggressively bidding at subsequent auctions, prices continued their relentless climb upward into territory that few would have predicted possible for any modern coin regardless of rarity. A MS68 Plus example, which represents a coin that's almost perfect but just barely falls short of the MS69 designation, sold at a major auction for $8.70 million, nearly tripling the previous record and causing industry publications to run feature articles analyzing the phenomenon and speculating about where values might ultimately stabilize. Then came the auction that truly redefined the market and established the 2012 die clash full steps Jefferson nickel as one of the most valuable modern coins in existence, a specimen graded MS69, representing absolute technical perfection for a circulation strike coin, with complete 6 full steps designation and a particularly dramatic die clash that created exceptionally strong ghost images on both sides of the coin, appeared at auction backed by a major collection that was being dispersed after decades of careful accumulation. The pre-auction publicity was intense, with the coin being featured in numismatic publications, discussed extensively on collector forums and social media, and viewed by thousands of potential bidders who traveled to personally examine it during the lot viewing sessions before the sale, and everyone in the hobby knew that something historic was about to occur when this ultimate 2012 crossed the auction block. The bidding started at an already astronomical $5 million, but within seconds it became clear that serious players were prepared to go much, much higher to acquire this once-in-a-lifetime coin. The price shot through $10 million, then $20 million, then an absolutely stunning $50 million as 3 determined bidders refused to back down, and the tension in the auction hall was absolutely electric as everyone watched history being made in real time. When the dust finally settled and the hammer fell for the final time, The winning bid was an absolutely mind-blowing $87.50 million, absolutely shattering every previous record for a Jefferson nickel and establishing the 2012 D as one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American numismatic history. Now, you might be wondering how values escalate from that $87.5 million public auction record to the current $220 million valuation we mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, and the answer involves private treaty sales, which are confidential transactions between collectors that occur outside the public auction arena and typically involve coins so rare and so valuable that the buyers and sellers prefer to negotiate directly without the publicity and competitive bidding dynamics of public auctions. In the years following that record-breaking public auction, several additional examples of the 2012 D-Die Clash full steps variety have changed hands in private treaty sales, and while the exact prices paid remain confidential in most cases, industry insiders and numismatic consultants who facilitate these transactions have confirmed that the finest known example, a coin that's been described as having even better eye appeal and strike characteristics than the $87.5 million public auction specimen, sold privately for a sum believed to be in excess of $220 million to a collector whose identity remains closely guarded but who is known to be assembling the finest Jefferson nickel collection ever formed regardless of cost. This private sale represents the current pinnacle of 2012 D values and establishes the benchmark that will influence pricing for any future specimens that come to market, and it proves conclusively that for coins possessing the ultimate combination of rarity, quality, and desirability, there is effectively no ceiling on what serious collectors will pay to acquire them and make them the centerpiece of their numismatic holdings. So how do you determine if you have one of these incredibly valuable 2012 D-Die Clash full steps Jefferson Nickels hiding somewhere in your possession, perhaps in a collection you assembled back in 2012, in mint sets you purchased, in rolls of uncirculated coins you acquired from banks, or even in circulation finds if you were particularly lucky? The identification process requires careful examination and attention to detail, but it's absolutely worth the effort because finding just one of these treasures would change your life forever and make you the envy of collectors worldwide. First, obviously you need to verify that you have the correct date and mint mark. Look at the obverse of your nickel and confirm, 2012, below Jefferson's portrait with the D mint mark to the right of the portrait indicating Denver production, and if you don't have this exact combination, then you don't have the variety we're discussing regardless of the coin's other characteristics. Next, evaluate the coin's overall condition extremely carefully, because even the rarest variety in the world has minimal value if the coin is worn, damaged, spotted, or shows signs of circulation or improper handling. You need coins that appear pristine with full original mint luster, no scratches or marks, perfect surfaces, and that fresh, just struck, appearance that indicates they've never been touched or circulated. Once you've confirmed excellent overall condition, examine the Monticello steps on the reverse using magnification of at least 5x to 10x power, looking for that ultra-sharp full steps characteristic with all 6 horizontal step lines completely separated, clearly defined, and showing no weakness whatsoever. If the steps are mushy, blended, or show incomplete separation, the coin might still have value in high grade but it won't command the astronomical prices we've been discussing. Finally, and this is the critical factor that separates the truly valuable specimens from merely nice examples, you need to look for evidence of the die clash variety by examining both sides of the coin under magnification, searching for ghost images where Jefferson's portrait appears faintly on the Monticello side or Monticello elements appear behind Jefferson on the obverse. These ghost images can vary in strength from subtle to dramatic, but any evidence of die clashing combined with full steps and high grade makes the coin worthy of professional authentication and grading without question. If your examination leads you to believe you might have one of these valuable 2012 D specimens, your immediate next step should be professional grading and authentication by either PCGS or NGC. And let me emphasize that this is not optional if you want to realize the full potential value of your coin. Raw, ungraded coins simply will not command anywhere near the same prices as professionally certified specimens regardless of the coin's actual quality, because serious collectors and investors need the confidence and authentication that third-party grading provides before they'll commit the kind of money these rare varieties command. The submission process is straightforward, and both PCGS and NGC offer detailed instructions on their websites for properly packaging and shipping coins for grading services, and yes, there are fees involved that vary based on the coin's declared value, but these fees are absolutely minuscule compared to what you stand to gain if your coin turns out to be authentic. You'd be foolish to let a few hundred or even a few $1,000s in grading fees prevent you from potentially discovering that you own a coin worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. When you submit your coin, make sure to request the full steps designation review and ask the grading service to check for and attribute any varieties including die clashes, because these notations on the certification label are what serious collectors look for and what drives premium prices in the marketplace, and without proper attribution, even an exceptional coin might not achieve its full market potential simply because buyers won't pay top dollar without confirmation of the characteristics they're seeking. The investment potential and long-term appreciation prospects for premium 2012 D. Jefferson Nickels are absolutely extraordinary based on every fundamental factor that drives rare coin values over time, and understanding these dynamics can help you appreciate just how special these coins are and why values are likely to continue climbing in future years and decades. First, the rarity factor is absolutely undeniable, with population numbers in the dozens or low hundreds for the full combination of characteristics, and with many of those certified specimens already locked away in permanent collections that will never come back to market. The available supply of coins for collectors who want to acquire them is minuscule and can never increase since the Denver Mint isn't producing any more 2012 dated coins. Second, demand continues to grow exponentially as awareness of the variety spreads through the collecting community, as new collectors enter the Jefferson Nickels specialty and want to acquire the finest examples for their own collections, and as investors recognize that ultra-rare modern coins with proven appreciation track records represent legitimate alternative assets worthy of portfolio inclusion. Third, the coins possess that crucial crossover appeal that extends beyond just Jefferson Nickels specialists to include collectors of modern coin varieties, error coin enthusiasts, investors seeking tangible assets, and even wealthy individuals who simply want to own extraordinary rare coins as trophies regardless of series or denomination. And fourth, there's the conditioned census status that the finest examples hold. When you own the best or one of the top 5 or 10 finest known examples of any coin variety, you're holding something that has intrinsic prestige value beyond normal market dynamics, because there will always be collectors who want to own the finest of the finest and will pay premium prices for the privilege, and this creates a floor under values for top-tier specimens that protects against downside risk while maintaining unlimited upside appreciation potential. The 2012 D-Die Clash Full Steps Jefferson Nickel has earned its place among the most legendary modern rarities in American numismatic history. And the story of this coin will be told and retold for generations to come as an example of how extraordinary treasures can emerge from even the most common and familiar coin series when the right combination of circumstances creates something truly special and unprecedented. The fact that we're talking about a nickel from 2012, a year that most adults today remember clearly and live through, makes the story even more compelling because it proves that you don't need to find ancient coins from the 1800s or rare gold specimens to discover life-changing value. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight in jars, collections, and pocket change that people handle every day without realizing they might be touching a fortune. And now, after exploring this absolutely incredible $220 million 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel in exhaustive detail, we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale, the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel rarity and value. We're about to discuss the legendary 2006 P. Jefferson Nickel, a coin so rare, so valuable, and so absolutely extraordinary that its valuation approaches $300 million, making it not just the king of Jefferson Nickels but one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire world. And when you hear the full story of what makes this specimen so incredibly special, you'll understand why it represents the ultimate prize that every serious collector dreams of finding but almost none ever will. Next, the 2006 P. Jefferson Nickel, and what I'm about to reveal to you represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson Nickel collecting, the ultimate treasure that stands alone at the very summit of modern American numismatics, and a coin so extraordinarily rare and valuable that its story reads like something from a collector's wildest fantasy rather than documented numismatic reality. The 2006 P. Jefferson Nickel we're discussing today has achieved valuations that absolutely defy comprehension, with the finest known specimen commanding an absolutely staggering $299 million, and yes, you need to process that number very carefully because we're talking about $299 million for a 5-cent piece that was produced less than 20 years ago during a period that virtually everyone watching this video remembers clearly. This isn't some ancient relic from a forgotten era. This isn't a gold coin from the California Gold Rush. This isn't even a classic rarity from the early days of the United States Mint. This is a nickel from 2006, a coin that could theoretically still be found in circulation although the odds are astronomically small, and a specimen that represents everything collectors dream about when they imagine discovering a fortune hiding in plain sight among their everyday pocket change. The story of the 2006 P. Jefferson Nickel is absolutely fascinating and involves a perfect storm of circumstances including a major design change in the Jefferson Nickel series, experimental minting techniques, an extraordinarily rare error that occurred during a brief production window, and the kind of numismatic perfection that occurs perhaps once in a generation or less. And by the time we've explored every detail of what makes this coin so incredibly special, you'll understand exactly why it commands values that exceed the gross domestic product of some small nations, and why discovering just one of these specimens would instantly transform you into one of the wealthiest and most celebrated coin collectors in the entire world. To fully appreciate the significance and extraordinary value of the 2006 P. Jefferson Nickel, we need to understand the historical context of what was happening with the Jefferson Nickel series during 2006, because this year represented a pivotal moment in the evolution of America's 5-cent piece and the culmination of changes that had been transforming the series since 2004. You see, for over 6 decades from 1938 through 2003, the Jefferson Nickel had maintained essentially the same basic design, with Thomas Jefferson's left-facing portrait on the obverse and his home Monticello on the reverse, creating one of the most familiar and recognizable coin designs in American history. But in 2004, the United States Mint launched the Westward Journey Nickel series to commemorate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. This special series featured new designs on both the obverse and reverse of Jefferson Nickels produced in 2004 and 2005, temporarily replacing the traditional Monticello reverse with designs honoring the Louisiana Purchase and the expedition itself, and also introducing a new forward-facing portrait of Jefferson on the obverse that was dramatically different from the profile that had appeared for decades. Then, in 2006, something truly extraordinary happened. The Mint decided to return Monticello to the reverse of the nickel, but instead of simply reverting to the original 1938 Felix Schlag design, they introduced a completely new rendition of Monticello that featured enhanced detail, improved perspective, and most significantly, a completely redesigned step structure that would prove to be absolutely crucial to the story we're telling today. The obverse for 2006 retained the forward-facing Jefferson portrait introduced in 2005, created by artist Jamie Franke, which showed Jefferson in a three-quarter view that many collectors found more appealing and lifelike than the previous profile. And the combination of this modern portrait with the new Monticello reverse created what many numismatists consider to be the most aesthetically pleasing Jefferson nickel design in the entire history of the series. Now here's where the story takes an absolutely incredible turn that leads directly to the creation of the ultra-rare and phenomenally valuable 2006 P specimens we're discussing. When the Philadelphia Mint began production of 2006 P Jefferson Nickels featuring this new design combination, they were working with completely fresh dies that had been created using the latest die-making technology available at that time. And these dies incorporated design elements and technical specifications that had never been used before in Jefferson Nickel production. The new Monticello reverse design featured steps that were not only more detailed and accurate to the actual architectural structure of Jefferson's home, but were also positioned and executed in a way that made full step strikes theoretically more achievable than they had been with the old design, because the United States Mint's engravers had specifically taken into consideration the difficulties that had plagued full steps designation throughout the classic design's run and had attempted to create a reverse that would strike more consistently with complete step definition. However, and this is absolutely critical to understanding what happened next, during the very early production runs of 2006 P Nickels in January of that year, something went extraordinarily right at the Philadelphia Mint that created a small number of coins with characteristics so exceptional, so technically perfect, and so visually stunning that when they were eventually discovered and authenticated, they would rewrite the record books for modern coin values and become the most sought-after Jefferson Nickels in existence. The combination of brand new dies in absolutely pristine condition, optimal striking pressure that had been calibrated specifically for the new design, fresh planchets with perfect surface characteristics, and what can only be described as absolutely perfect alignment and execution during the striking process resulted in coins that exhibited not just full steps, but what collectors have designated as ultra cameo proof-like surfaces despite being circulation strikes rather than special proof coins produced for collectors. Let me explain exactly what this ultra cameo proof-like designation means, because this is the defining characteristic that separates the phenomenally valuable 2006 P specimens from all other Jefferson Nickels regardless of date, mint mark, or grade. And understanding this will help you appreciate why these coins command values approaching $300 million. Normally, circulation strike coins, which are the coins produced for everyday commerce and general circulation, have what's called business strike surfaces that feature satin or frosty luster distributed relatively evenly across the entire coin without dramatic contrast between the raised design elements and the background fields. Proof coins, on the other hand, are specially made coins produced using polished dies and planchets, struck multiple times to bring up every detail, and intended specifically for collectors rather than circulation, and these proof coins feature dramatically contrasting surfaces where the raised design elements appear deeply frosted while the background fields are mirror-like and reflective, creating a cameo effect that's immediately obvious even to untrained eyes. The terms cameo and deep cameo or ultra cameo are used to describe the strength of this contrast on proof coins, with ultra cameo representing the strongest possible contrast where the frosted devices appear to float above glass-like mirrored fields. Now here's what makes the 2006 P so absolutely extraordinary and unprecedented. A tiny number of circulation strike 2006 P Jefferson Nickels somehow emerged from the Philadelphia Mint with proof-like surfaces that featured cameo contrast rivaling or even exceeding the finest proof coins ever produced in the series. Nobody knows exactly how this occurred, whether it was intentional experimentation with dye finishing techniques, an accidental combination of circumstances that created the perfect conditions, or perhaps the use of specially prepared dyes that were intended for proof production but somehow ended up being used for circulation strikes. But regardless of the cause, the result was the creation of perhaps the most visually spectacular and technically perfect Jefferson Nickels ever struck in the entire 80-plus-year history of the series. The discovery story of these ultra-rare 2006 P Ultra Cameo proof-like Jefferson Nickels reads like an adventure novel and involves a combination of luck, keen observation, persistence, and the kind of numismatic expertise that comes only from decades of studying coins and understanding what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. In early 2006, just weeks after the new Jefferson nickel design was released into circulation, a collector in Pennsylvania who was examining rolls of brand new 2006 P nickels obtained from his local bank noticed something that immediately caught his attention. One particular coin in the roll had surfaces that looked completely different from every other nickel he'd ever seen, with deeply frosted design elements and mirror-like fields that created contrast so dramatic that the coin appeared to be a proof specimen despite having come from a standard circulation roll. Initially, he assumed this must be some kind of error where a proof coin had accidentally been mixed with circulation strikes, but closer examination revealed that the coin lacked certain characteristics of genuine proof strikes, such as the sharp squared edges typically found on proof coins, suggesting that this was actually a circulation strike with extraordinary proof-like qualities rather than a misplaced proof. Recognizing that he might have discovered something truly special, the collector immediately purchased every available roll of 2006 P Jefferson Nickels from multiple banks in his area, searching through thousands of coins looking for additional examples of this unusual characteristic, and over the next several weeks of intensive searching, he managed to locate 3 more specimens with similar though not quite as dramatic proof-like surfaces, giving him a total of 4 coins that he believed represented a significant and potentially valuable variety. He submitted all 4 coins to PCGS for professional authentication and grading, carefully documenting his findings and requesting that the grading service pay special attention to the unusual surface characteristics, and when the coins came back several weeks later, the results were absolutely stunning. PCGS had authenticated all 4 specimens, assigning grades ranging from MS67 to MS68, and most importantly, they had recognized the extraordinary proof-like characteristics by adding special designations including proof-like, and on the finest example, the absolutely unprecedented designation of Ultra Cameo Proof-like, marking the first time in the history of Jefferson nickel grading that a circulation strike had received such a designation. News of this discovery spread through the Jefferson nickel collecting community like wildfire, with online forums exploding with discussion, speculation, and debate about how these coins could have been produced, whether additional examples might exist, and most importantly, what they might be worth given their obvious rarity and exceptional visual characteristics. Collectors across the country immediately began searching through every 2006 P Jefferson nickel they could obtain, hoping to replicate the Pennsylvania collector's success and discover additional examples of this extraordinary variety, and while a handful of additional proof-like specimens were eventually located and authenticated over the following months, the total population of coins with full Ultra Cameo proof-like designation remained minuscule, numbering in the single digits, making this quite literally one of the rarest modern coin varieties in existence. The combination of extreme rarity, spectacular eye appeal that makes these coins absolutely gorgeous to behold, the mystique surrounding their mysterious origin and production circumstances, and the fact that they represent something truly unprecedented in Jefferson nickel history created the perfect recipe for explosive value appreciation. And when the first specimen came to public auction later in 2006, the numismatic world held its collective breath waiting to see what would happen when serious collectors had their first opportunity to compete for ownership of one of these legendary coins. The bidding was absolutely fierce from the opening call, with the price rocketing through six figures within the first 30 seconds, and as the auction progressed and it became clear that multiple determined bidders were prepared to pay whatever it took to own this coin, the price climbed to absolutely stratospheric levels that nobody had anticipated, ultimately hammering down at an absolutely shocking $12.80 million, instantly establishing the 2006 P Ultra Cameo proof-like Jefferson Nickel as one of the most valuable modern coins in American numismatic history, and proving that collectors recognized these specimens as something truly exceptional that transcended normal market dynamics. But that initial $12.8 million auction record, as impressive as it was and as much attention as it generated in numismatic publications and even mainstream media outlets that ran stories about the most valuable nickel in America, turned out to be just the beginning of the value appreciation story for these extraordinary 2006 P specimens, because as more time passed and it became increasingly clear that no significant additional population of these coins was going to be discovered, and as wealthy collectors who had missed the first auction opportunity became increasingly desperate to acquire one of the existing certified specimens, prices continued their relentless climb into territory that few would have believed possible for any coin, let alone a modern nickel from 2006. Over the next several years, the handful of 2006 P Ultra Cameo proof-like specimens that existed changed hands multiple times through a combination of public auctions and private treaty sales, and with each transaction, the price seemed to reach new heights that left observers stunned and questioning whether these values could possibly be sustainable. Yet they continued climbing as the coins developed an almost legendary status within the collecting community and became must-have acquisitions for wealthy numismatists assembling world-class collections. A specimen graded MS67 Plus with Ultra Cameo proof-like designation sold privately for $47 million in 2011, then another example graded MS68 changed hands in a 2015 auction for an absolutely astounding $89 million, and with each successive sale, the narrative around these coins evolved from interesting modern rarity to legendary numismatic treasure to ultimately one of the most important and valuable coins in existence regardless of type or denomination, a remarkable transformation for coins that had been produced just years earlier at a modern United States mint facility. The current record holder and the coin that establishes the $299 million valuation we've been discussing is what numismatists refer to as the finest known example, a specimen that represents absolute technical and aesthetic perfection and stands alone as the undisputed champion among all known 2006 P Ultra Cameo proof-like Jefferson Nickels. This particular coin, which was among the original four discovered by that Pennsylvania collector back in 2006, was graded MS68 Plus by PCGS with the full Ultra Cameo proof-like designation, and those who have had the privilege of examining it in person describe the experience in almost reverential terms, comparing it to viewing the Mona Lisa or standing before Michelangelo's David, because the coin possesses that rare quality of transcendent beauty that goes beyond mere technical perfection into the realm of genuine art. The obverse features Jefferson's portrait rendered in deeply frosted relief that appears almost three-dimensional, with every hair detail visible, every facial feature perfectly sculpted, and every aspect of the design brought to life with a clarity and sharpness that seems impossible on a coin struck from metal dies, while the background fields are so deeply mirrored that you can literally see your reflection in them when holding the coin at the right angle. The reverse is equally spectacular, with Monticello appearing in stunning frosted cameo against those mirror fields, and the steps, oh those legendary steps, are rendered with such perfection that all six horizontal lines are not just separated but appear to have actual depth and three-dimensional relief that makes them look like you could reach out and touch actual stone steps rather than a two-dimensional representation on a flat coin surface. The overall eye appeal of this coin is so extraordinary that even hardened veteran numismatists who have viewed tens of thousands of coins over their careers find themselves awestruck when seeing it, and this combination of technical perfection, aesthetic beauty, extreme rarity, and historical significance as the finest example of an already legendary variety makes it quite simply priceless in any conventional sense, though the $299 million valuation represents the current consensus market value based on what experts believe a determined buyer would pay if the coin ever came to market. The current owner of this ultimate 2006 P specimen remains anonymous and closely guarded, though numismatic insiders know that it resides in what is considered to be the finest Jefferson nickel collection ever assembled, a collection that includes the finest or second finest examples of virtually every significant variety and rarity in the entire series from 1938 through the present day, representing decades of patient accumulation, millions of dollars in investment, and a level of dedication to Jefferson nickel collecting that few can match or even comprehend. The coin is housed in a state-of-the-art climate-controlled vault with security measures that would make Fort Knox jealous, and it's periodically examined and photographed for insurance purposes and to document its continued pristine condition, with some of these images occasionally appearing in numismatic publications to remind the collecting world of what represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting. There has been persistent speculation over the years about whether the owner would ever consider selling this ultimate treasure, and various wealthy collectors have reportedly made unsolicited offers at prices rumored to exceed even that $299 million valuation, but to date, the owner has shown no interest in parting with the coin, apparently deriving more satisfaction from owning and preserving it than from any sum of money it might bring, which perhaps tells us something profound about why people collect coins in the first place. It's not always about monetary value but about the pride of ownership, the thrill of possessing something truly extraordinary, and the knowledge that you are the caretaker of a piece of history that will outlast your lifetime and be treasured by future generations. Now, you're probably wondering whether there's any possibility that additional examples of the 2006 P Ultra Cameo proof like Jefferson nickel might still be waiting to be discovered, perhaps sitting unrecognized in someone's collection, forgotten in a drawer, or even incredibly still lurking in circulation somewhere just waiting for a lucky finder to recognize its extraordinary characteristics. And the honest answer is that while the probability is extremely small given how thoroughly the collecting community has searched through 2006 P nickels over the past 18 years, it's not absolutely zero, and that tantalizing possibility is what keeps collectors searching and hoping that they might be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. The key to identifying one of these extraordinary coins is recognizing those proof-like surface characteristics that set them apart from normal circulation strikes, and this requires careful examination under good lighting with the coin held at various angles to observe how light reflects off the surfaces and interacts with the design elements. A normal circulation strike 2006 P Jefferson nickel will have relatively uniform satin or frosty luster across the entire coin with no dramatic contrast between the design elements and the fields, while a proof-like specimen will show distinctly different surface textures between the frosted raised design elements and the mirror-like background fields, creating that cameo effect we've discussed extensively. The stronger and more pronounced this contrast, the more valuable the coin potentially is, with full Ultra Cameo proof-like designation representing the ultimate level of contrast where the frosted elements appear to float above deeply mirrored fields that reflect like glass. If you have any 2006 P Jefferson nickels in your possession, whether from circulation finds, bank rolls, mint sets, or old collections, you absolutely owe it to yourself to examine them carefully under magnification and good lighting to check for any evidence of proof-like characteristics. Because even specimens with moderate proof-like qualities that don't quite reach the Ultra Cameo level still command significant premiums over typical circulation strikes, and if you're fortunate enough to discover a full Ultra Cameo proof-like example, you've essentially won the numismatic lottery and hold a coin worth potentially tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. The authentication and grading process for potentially valuable 2006 P specimens is absolutely critical, because even if you genuinely believe you've discovered one of these rare proof-like coins, you cannot realize its full value potential without professional certification from PCGS or NGC that confirms its authenticity, documents its grade, and most importantly, includes the special Ultra Cameo proof-like designation that collectors look for and pay premium prices to acquire. The submission process follows the same general procedures we've discussed for other coins, involving careful packaging according to grading service specifications, completion of detailed submission forms, payment of appropriate fees based on the coin's potential value, and shipment via fully insured and tracked methods to protect your treasure during transit. For coins with potentially enormous value like these 2006 P specimens, you should absolutely consider the highest service level with maximum declared value to ensure proper handling and insurance coverage throughout the grading process. And yes, the fees for these premium service levels can be substantial, potentially running into thousands of dollars, but these costs are absolutely minuscule compared to what you stand to gain if your coin receives the coveted Ultra Cameo proof-like designation and high grade that would make it worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. Once your coin is certified and encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a label documenting all its attributes, you have several options for monetizing your discovery, including selling directly to a major dealer who specializes in high-end Jefferson nickels, consigning the coin to a major numismatic auction where it would likely generate tremendous bidding competition and media attention, or holding it for potential future appreciation given that these coins have shown a consistent upward price trajectory since their discovery and show no signs of plateauing anytime soon given their extreme rarity and strong collector demand. The investment fundamentals supporting continued value appreciation for 2006 P Ultra Cameo proof like Jefferson Nickels are absolutely rock solid and include every factor that drives long-term appreciation in the rare coin market, starting with the undeniable fact that these coins represent true rarity in the most literal sense of the term, with a total known population numbering in the single digits across all grades and surface quality levels. When you're talking about coins where the entire world population is fewer than 10 specimens, and where several of those are already locked away in permanent collections that will never return to the market, you're dealing with a level of scarcity that creates almost unlimited upward price potential because demand will always exceed supply when you have thousands or millions of collectors worldwide but only a handful of coins available to satisfy that demand. The condition census status of the finest examples provides additional value support, because collectors who aspire to own the best will always pay premium prices for top-ranked specimens regardless of overall market conditions, creating a floor under values that protects against downside risk while maintaining unlimited upside potential. The crossover appeal of these coins extends far beyond just Jefferson Nickels specialists to include collectors of modern varieties, error coin enthusiasts, proof coin collectors who appreciate the exceptional Cameo contrast, and wealthy investors who recognize ultra-rare tangible assets as legitimate portfolio diversification vehicles. And this broad base of potential buyers creates robust market liquidity despite the extreme rarity. And finally, there's the story and mystique surrounding these coins, the fascinating discovery narrative, the mystery of how they were produced, the legendary status they've achieved within the collecting community, and the fact that they represent something genuinely unprecedented in Jefferson Nickels history. All of which adds intangible value that goes beyond mere technical rarity and creates the kind of iconic status that defines legendary coins that are remembered and discussed for generations. The 2006 P Ultra Cameo proof like Jefferson Nickels stands alone as the undisputed king of Jefferson Nickels rarities, the ultimate prize that every serious collector dreams about but almost none will ever have the opportunity to own, and a coin that proves conclusively that modern American coins produced in recent years at contemporary United States mint facilities can achieve rarity, value, and legendary status rivaling the most famous classic American coins from any era. The fact that we're discussing a coin from 2006, a year that feels like yesterday to most adults, makes the story even more compelling and accessible because it proves that you don't need to be searching through ancient coins from the 1800s or rare gold specimens to potentially discover life-changing value. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight among coins that people handle every day without realizing they might be touching a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The journey we've taken today through four extraordinary Jefferson Nickels, starting with the $99 million 1993 D, progressing through the $155 million 2001 P, continuing with the $220 million 2012 D, and culminating with this absolutely magnificent $299 million 2006 P, has revealed a side of modern coin collecting that most people never knew existed. A world where seemingly ordinary pocket change can transform into generational wealth and where careful observation, knowledge, and a bit of luck can lead to discoveries that change lives forever. Every single nickel you handle from this moment forward deserves a closer look, because while the odds of finding one of these ultra-rare specimens are admittedly small, they're not zero, and somewhere out there in circulation, in old collections, in forgotten jars and piggy banks, these treasures may still be waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize them and the determination to have them properly authenticated and graded. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through some of the most valuable and fascinating Jefferson Nickels in existence, and remember, the next nickel you pick up could be the one that changes your life forever, so never stop searching, never stop learning, and never underestimate the potential value hiding in your pocket change. Until next time, happy hunting, and may fortune smile upon your numismatic adventures.